Hello, my name is Jill Milligan and I'm 83 years old. The memory I've retained all my life is when I was about 10, Plastic Max had just been introduced and I waited for it to rain, and it did rain. And I asked my mother if I could go out in the garden, and I stood out there in the plastic Mac and I planted seeds, Cosmo seeds, and they all came up, many Cosmo seeds. And whenever I see the flower Cosmo now, I remember standing in my new plastic Mac in my garden. It was a lovely memory. I was feeling very contented because I had waited for the day that it rained. It seems unbelievable being in Cumbria, but I was in Essex, which is the driest county in England, and waiting for the rain to come. And I can remember planting the seeds, and it made me feel very happy and contented. It was fairly quiet, just probably the comings and goings of neighbours, and you'd hear, there weren't that many cars then, so you didn't hear many car doors closing. It was fairly quiet, I remember, and I did really concentrate on the rain and planting these seeds. But I love being in the garden. I would rather do the garden than housework. Yeah.
Going to the fair. I don't know what time of the year it was, but I was with my sister and I met a friend who I used to go to school with. Well, I was only 16, so I mean, I didn't leave school till I was 16. And he was with Tony. But we sat in a row and walked past, but then we met again because you walk round and round. And then we stopped and spoke, and that was the beginning of our romance. I remember seeing them. The sounds of the music and the smells of the toffee apples and the candy floss. I used to go on the dog jumps. I liked those, the dog jump cars.
Walmsley, you were on the Walmsley.
Oh, I know, I didn't like the Waltz, but I went on it. I was only 16, he was 19, and we met again. I don't know, he must have made a date with me, I can't remember exactly. But we've been married 63 years, so it's a good history. I don't know whether it's a very good story. It was at Bitts Park, so I suppose I went...
You used to spend your life around Hammond's Pond.
Hammond's Pond when I was a child. Because when I met Tony, my dad had just died and we'd moved house. But we used to live down the road from Hammond's Pond, and we used to go there every day and go on the boats, and the ducks were there, and it was lovely. We used to always go on the boats and look at the fish in the pond. And it was a nice place to live beside, because there was monkeys there as well then, in the monkey cage. At the bottom of the path when you walked in, there was a thing with monkeys in, and we used to stand and watch them.
They were chattering.
Oh yes, they were chattering, making noises, jumping at the cage and looking out. And there was the swings, of course, and the roundabouts and things we used to go on, and there was a paddling pool. Oh, it was good place to live beside.
in Pembrokeshire, and my husband insisted we were quite safe, and there were people down on the beach, and I'm very cautious, and I was watching all the time this tide, and all of a sudden it came in fairly quickly, and we had to paddle through. And I looked at him, he said, well, we could have climbed up that cliff, and I thought, I'm glad we didn't have to do that. So at the time, just the sea, very pleasant, and the usual smells you get with the sea and seaweed and what have you. We were lucky with the weather that time we were down there, I remember. It was pleasant, but I was really worried about that tide, I must admit. So that was my memory of another memory, but lots of good memories have been outside, I can remember through the years.
The lovely holidays with the kids and going across the golf course and down the beach and ice cream at the long cakes shop.
Yeah. And the sand dunes, we used to go in the sand dunes and make a place for the children.
Oh, your picnic and stuff.
And go in the sea and swim.
Yeah.
Because it was easy to swim in the sea because it held you.
Oh, it's some lovely times. Lovely. I remember walking across the big wall where, down where we lived, this stream I was telling you about, there was a little bridge over the stream, and it had a brick wall like that, a stone wall, and I decided to walk on it, clever boy there, but the nettles up the other side were that high, fell in there.
I think the thing I remember about childhood, where I grew up, it wasn't as built up as it is now. And there were fields over to the Thames. We were a mile from the Thames, and we had great pleasure. There would be ditches, and we would catch tadpoles, much to my father's annoyance because he had a fish pond, and then they would turn into frogs and be leaping around the garden. But I loved that, and so did my friends. We loved going over into the fields and walking to the Thames and sit on the banks and watch the ships go by. I can remember falling in. I was with friends and went much further over to the Thames than I should have. And I went head first. I was covered in mud. And when I got home and rang the bell, I was fine. I hadn't cried or anything until my father started to laugh. And when he laughed, I cried. It varied our walks, I must admit, because I didn't drive. A lot of my time was spent with the boys in the park at the end of the road, and that was lovely. Yeah, I enjoyed that. She said there was a lady that lived near my grandmother, and she was a great walker, and I've always enjoyed walking. And she would take me. I was only very young, but I enjoyed those walks, and it was the peace of it, I think. Good walks, and I can remember, and it stayed with me always, and I find myself doing this with the conifer to get the aroma of the conifer and different ferns, and I learnt a lot from her, yes.
We used to go to walks to Warwick Bridge with my dad, me and my elder sister. She's gone now, but she was 4 years older than me. And we used to walk to Warwick Bridge. And I looked over this wall one day, it was only that high as the wall, and it was absolutely full of crocuses. Just never forget it. just absolutely full of crocus. I've never seen anything like it before. I used to go and play down the fields at the Beck, or where the stream went into the River Eden. I poked a stick and I poked in this wasp's nest. I don't know why. Oh, covered in wasps I was. But I'm alright. And you could hear the trains about every hour. So 12 o'clock, there's a train at Weatherall Station, and all right, it's time to go home for our dinner. We didn't have watches and mobile phones in them days, you know. Time to go home for our dinner. And Mother used to go to bed. Mother had a load of scones, fresh scones with butter on, proper butter in them days. Currant Sultana scones, beautiful. We've been down the fields playing all day and playing football till midnight, double summertime. They changed the clocks during the wartime. We used to hear the bombers going up to Glasgow.
We had an air raid shelter in the garden and one in the road, but I preferred the one in the road because all the families went into there. My memory is of running to the air raid shelter when the siren went, and then waiting for the all clear. When you were saying about being outside, the amazing part is, although there was bombing, flowers still grew in parts that were bombed. The seeds still came through, and you'd see pretty flowers, and you think, as young as I was, I liked to see that, yes. And you had fun, and people were kind, and there was a lot of goodwill amongst people all the time. And as young as I was only just over a year when the war started. So by the time it finished, I was 6 then, yeah. So it was quite harrowing at times. My early memories is of war. And then I went to my grandmother's in Wales, and I remember how peaceful it was in the mountains. I think this is why I liked Cumbria, because of the mountains again. Perhaps it was association with Wales. So good memories. People often say, oh, you live near London, oh, very built up, but it wasn't always as built up. And it isn't many miles down the road, you come to countryside again, you know, this is it.